Okay, thank you so much, Tabish, and thank you, Nigel. Thank you to the art committee for selecting my work. This has been a long journey. As I said, if I go back, I think I must have started drawing or painting when I was 2 years old. My mother raved about my drawings when I was 3. And she had a benchmark because she was a teacher. So, you know, it wasn't just a biased mom. And I think I was the artist in school, and then in late teens, I began to do some courses in art, and found that, you know, this was my passion. Then I got married young. I had 2 masterpieces, Ronit and Rupert. Where's Rupert? There. And I did manage to continue painting, and I had a show when I think Ronit was 5 years old and Rupert was a baby, and I got some commissions. But then life happened. Things took a twist and turn, and I had to have a regular income, so art fell by the wayside. And then, fast forward a few decades, I started painting again, and 3 years ago, I had this crazy idea of going to Central St. Martin's. I applied, and I'm surprised I got in. I loved the program that I joined. It was an MA in Art and Science. And I was really intrigued by the interdisciplinary subject, all the connections between art and science. And of course, I met some wonderful tutors and some very talented and hardworking students. Let's have a show of hands. CSM, hands up. Hey. You guys, each one of you were my inspiration. I mean, it was amazing, those 2 years. And then to win this award. And so here we are.
Amazing, thank you. And talking about inspiration, I think your journey is also very inspirational, because it shows that, you know, it's never too late to change tack, to try new things. So if any of you are in the corporate life, remember, to become an artist. I should point out that I've spent 16 years in the corporate world and now an art critic, so I've done it myself, so it can happen. So I think the one thing we want to talk about is the material you use. So some of you who are keen-eyed walked through and saw the sculptures, you might have looked at it and thought, that material looks really familiar, and some of you may have twigged it, but I can guarantee that, I'm not saying you should go touch that sculpture, but every single one of you has touched that material in your life. So it'd be great if, Anita, you want to talk about it and how that material is transformed, why you chose that material, and how it becomes your artwork.
Well, how I chose it is quite a story. When we had induction, the first day of the MA Art and Science, we were in lockdown, so it was online. And we had to do a show and tell, talk about, you know, our research and show some work. And I was panicking because I had no idea what I was going to show. I was thinking, oh my God, I want to do research on neuroscience. I had cared for my mother who had Alzheimer's, so I wanted to do something to do with memory. But I was also interested in pollution. And, you know, so there were lots of things going through my head. And I think, what am I going to show? What am I going to show? And I was looking around for inspiration, and there on the kitchen counter was a bag of fruits, oranges. And it seemed to say to me, hey, look at me, look at my web. This is art and science, it's got all the interconnections. So I quickly snipped it off and did my show and tell on the laptop. And then afterwards, I thought, wow, this is, you know, this is good stuff. It's flexible, it's brightly colored, it's very light. I'm going to experiment with this. So that's how it happened. There's literally 1,000 of these bags between the 2 sculptures that you've seen out there. So, you know, it's been a lot of stitching together. Yeah. that's it.
I don't think you pass them around.
Pass them around.
It's funny because when you start passing around, I was thinking you came up with this idea during the pandemic when we couldn't pass things around. It's quite nice in your hand. Hopefully not COVID, just the bags. But it'd be interesting to know how you get from those bags that we're all familiar with to the sculptures we see out there. What's that process, and how do you decide what form it takes and what it looks like?
Well, I think I had sort of several ideas that I worked through, and I wanted to get the communities to interact. So, you know, I started joining them together and then getting people to hold them and play with them, and then seeing what happened to it. So that's part of my experiment. So it wasn't sort of planned and thought through, it just happened. And then I would hang it from trees to see it moving, or even went up the Pennines, held it against the blustery wind, and it got buffeted, the holes appeared in it. And, you know, so it was like evolving and a living piece of work. So it kind of spoke to me. I don't think I had much control. I was trapped by it. I just went with it. And if some of you have already seen the film that I've got there, you see it waving in the wind. And in fact, one of the first experiments was when we hung it outside Granary Square. And you know, that moment was joyful because it was flowing. And I thought, hey, this is good. It could be outside. But then I started thinking, not all the work will be accessible to people. And I wanted to work with communities where we were connecting with them after the pandemic. It was really a key moment to, you know, to have something tangible to hold and to connect and feel it. Depending on the space that it would be shown in, the shape would then fit with that space. So when it was in the grad show, I had it hanging, so it was looking more like a butterfly or an octopus, I don't know what, you know, something abstract floating up there. And whereas here, I had this wall, and I thought, you know, it would be nice to do a journey. So it depends on the space that it occupies. And then I work with that space and the material. The material is so malleable. I can put wires into it to give it shape, stuff bits into it, and you have lots of layers of meaning. I step back and look at it almost like a painting, you know. Do I need to add a bit more yellow here? Does it accentuate the movement? So that's the sort of process. I could go on forever, but...
No, I think that is important, and I think it might be worthwhile just spending a little bit of time talking about, so there were some workshops being shown on there. It'd be interesting to know kind of how they fit into the creation of your artwork, and also kind of this sense of you're not being fully in control of what it becomes, the final outcome. So if you've seen the one out the top of the escalators, that one's got the holes in that Anita was just talking about. So feel free to go out afterwards and have a look at that. But it'd be good to understand a bit about the workshops, community element, and how you're okay with it not being completely within your control.
Absolutely. So some of the workshops were where people held them together, so that it was about them connecting around it and then coming up with thoughts and stories, things to different people. And so in those workshops, we got them to write little notes on what they thought, and then we would share those ideas. The other workshop that really touched me, and I feel that's been a very special workshop, was at UCL, thanks to Michael, who organized it. UCL has a speech center for aphasia patients, and it's speech therapy, really. As part of the research, Michael and I collaborated on a project where we worked with the nets, and then I had to think how best to use that workshop. So I structured it in terms of color, shape, form, texture, smell. So I inserted some lime slices, or, you know, sprayed it with something and passed it around so they would smell. But we had those different sessions around the net. And it was smaller pieces of net which were being handed out. And it was absolutely amazing to see how people responded. They would, aphasia traps your words, your memory, and some people are able to speak, some people are not, some people prefer to write, and Michael had prepared me very well in terms of the variations in the participants' ability to communicate. And it was so good the way the net just seemed to help to release those words which were trapped in their brains. Because when we lose our speech and we are communicating with our carers, it's normally things like, let's go for a walk, do you want a drink? You know, it's the day-to-day things. Shall I put the telly on? But you don't have any abstract thoughts or deeper thinking. And what the net was doing was reminding them that they have that vocabulary. And there was a particular guy who obviously had in his previous life been very articulate and wanted to communicate. You could see from his gestures, he wanted to get the words out. And he was struggling with it. And I kind of teased him a bit. I said, because first he said, oh, it's supermarket nets. And I said, I know you're very pragmatic. And then he said, pragmatic. I love that word. I said, you're right. Because you see, as it happens, when you're being cared for, you're not using such words. So we had wonderful moments, and then there was, I could go on lots of stories, but this one memorable moment was when he said, and this was Mark, he just touched me so much, he said, I love the beauty in the broken. So the net, the holes had been repaired in colored yarn, but some holes had been deliberately left unmended. And he pointed at that and he said, I love beauty in the broken. Because, you know, that was him. And I thought, oh my God, this is so powerful. This is the transformation power of art. That it releases, you know, thoughts that are trapped. And that's the kind of thing I'd love to do more of.
Amazing. That's such an inspirational story, and thank you for sharing that. And I suppose one thing, when I saw the work for the first time, I also want to bring this back, make it more personal, but to you this time, which is when you think of the nets that hold those satsumas or lemons or whatever you have in them together, they're essential vessels for carrying something, and then they get damaged along the way, which I asked Anita, I was like, hopefully her sons won't take this the wrong way, but I said, did this remind you of kind of like motherhood? Because obviously you are a vessel for bringing forth new life into this world. Hopefully you weren't too damaged there. And I want to see what you saw of yourself in your work.
I hadn't thought about the birth aspect, but it's interesting how people do see different things in it, yes. I think what I did see is myself is so bright and colorful, and that's me, you know, I have this front, but inside, you know, there's the fragility and the wear and tear, so I definitely identify with it. And the one outside by the escalator as you come up, I don't know if you noticed, what did you notice? Can I ask? Did you notice anything on it? In that round one as you came up?
Should I say it?
Yeah, go on.
The leaves,
Leaves,
the
yes,
tree,
sprouting.
the branching tree, and what should I say? The holes and everything, yeah.
Yeah, so in terms of me, just the fragility and the strength of connections. So there are holes, which are the gaps in the connections or in life, but then there are many strong threads which have stitched all these pieces together. So I think, yeah, it's, and the reinvention, the growth through the leaves.
Yeah.
I do see a lot of me in it.
Oh, excellent. I'm glad I wasn't seeing things. Right. Last question for me would be kind of how your work ties in to not just your belief, but also the wider societal belief that I think hopefully everyone in this room and the global community believes in, this kind of road to sustainability. Because obviously one of yours is called to net zero, and obviously there's a tie-in to being sustainable, and you're obviously using a material that is artificial but also exposing it to natural elements. So how all that kind of ties together would be great to hear from you.
Okay. So to net zero is about that journey to reaching that target. So it's not just a buzzword, we really have to make it happen. I know I'm not going to be around in 2050, but many of you will be. And we want this to be a reality. So the journey is difficult, it's got lots of twists and turns. If you see that net, you will see there are cavities. There's, when you go out there, there's a sort of cauldron or a ring of fire at the base. So it's got peaks and troughs, so it's got fire, it's got ice, it's got melting glacier. So it's got a lot of things that are happening. And there are hoops. And we have to jump through those hoops. And hopefully at Clifford Chance, who else is at Clifford Chance? There's somebody at the back there. It means that it's not just the ESG policy, it does become a reality. How do we get to that target? I think that's what the work is about, reminding people, because I think artists now have a responsibility to use their art as a voice for whether it's issues on climate change or whether it's about racism or whatever issues you want to tackle. People will stop and look at your work. They will reflect. And if we have a message to share, it's so powerful. We can use art to send those messages. So I think in summary of where I'm going with the work, you want to hold
I'm
one?
going to hold this, okay.
And hold this. So you see there are two words here which capture my work. I want to raise it higher for people to see. And what do you notice? What's the common word that's contained in both these words? Art.
Eat.
Yes. You cannot have the earth without art. Yeah. And we need to look after the earth. And we can also, as artists, look after the heart. In fact, today is the Mental Health Day, World Mental Health Day. And through our work, we make connections. As I was saying earlier, people stop, see, reflect, connect with each other. And if we put our heart into it, I think it speaks itself, it speaks volumes, and people can connect with it. So, earth and heart.
It's amazing. And I think for some of the cheeky people who shout out ear, just like ears, we can't live without art either. So we need both of them. So it's very important. And so I think what we'll do now is throw it open to say, I don't know if you could raise your hands or shout out whatever works for you. Oh, there's a question here from the gentleman in front.
Hi. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Very, it's very impressive, your journey. So when you reflect on your journey, and obviously, you mentioned your two masterpieces, and it's a nice way to describe them. It's better than calling them the burning cauldrons or the melting glaciers and the other deformities in life. But I'm just wondering where you're going next. And when you started this new chapter in your life, did you anticipate being here? What's next? How does your journey continue?
Well, as I said, it was a crazy idea, I thought. At the age of 70, who's going to apply to Central St. Martin's? Yeah. And now I'm nearly 73, and I'm thinking, I'm lucky I'm here. This is great. And, the net seems to be taking me on a journey. So if I was 20 years younger, I could say, yes, I've got a plan, and I'm going to do this. But right now, I'm enjoying every day. So we'll see what happens.
I would disagree with Anita when she says she won't be around in 2050. Because,
Wow, no
she's
way.
a formidable woman. I think she'll still be going long after I've gone. That's another question just here.
It's more of a reflection, really. I observe you working in Perville Library with lots of communities and people of different ages, and many of them women. And it's been transformational for our little community, but the legacy you have left, you're probably not aware of this, but I just wonder, it is like how beautiful it is to have you being so confident and being a mature person coming into community and actually giving people some hope and giving people aspirations, sharing your journey and making it really a lasting legacy. So it is more of a thank you to you rather than a question.
There's another question, Blue.
Yeah. So thank you so much for your insightful yet very practical art. My question is, what advice could you give young women like myself who are, juggling having normal corporate job, but also kind of love art and wish to one day to come back to it?
Give her a hug and then figure it out.
Yeah, I can give lots of hugs. Right. Difficult one, because I think, as I was saying earlier, there are women's groups, and like I've joined a group now called Art Can. Tabish is a trustee of Art Can, and I think Kara is here somewhere. We have an Art Can member here in the room. Yeah. What I see because this is the change that I was saying 30 years ago. We didn't have WhatsApp, but now, on the WhatsApp, there's so many messages. This is a scam, don't go for that, do this, do that. So the community of mothers who are juggling work and children is much stronger because of the connections you have through WhatsApp. So I think there's a much easier network which is supportive. Do you agree? You have a very vibrant network where you support each other. So I think that helps.
Thank you.
You can find out more about Art Can, speak to me afterwards.
Yes.
I'm a trustee of it. Sorry, when I said any women in the audience, there's a man whose hand shall be sheepishly put it straight back down. So I'm going to go back to you, sir, and ask a big question.
Just a question about your technique. I'm interested in the sequence between stitching and structure. So do you conceive the structure first and then stitch accordingly?
Yes.
Or do you stitch first and then see what structure can come out of the stitched material?
Again, I think it varies according to the project. So if it's site specific, then I do need to think about the structure and the shape and then stitch and develop it. So for the one which is 2 Net Zero, I have wonderful friends who came. I call them my hanging party. We hung the structure in my house, and it was a skeleton, and then it grew. But I needed to have the structure in place and then see where I would flesh it out, where I would, shape it, where it needed more material coming in. But if it was, out to be hung from the canopy like we did at Perivale or from the trees, then of course the structure wouldn't matter. But it's usually the process depends. It can vary.
One more? Tall gentleman at the back.
My tutor.
Congratulations, Anita. It's lovely to see your work in this context. I wanted to ask you about the aesthetic of your work, because at one level, and I'm really curious about this, at one level it's addressing some quite profound and very serious environmental issues. And at the other way, on the other level, you make it beautiful. And I wanted to ask you about how there's a kind of elevation of this very humble material, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah.
And humble material people would think of as a problem and something to be discarded and finished, but actually you've elevated it into something beautiful and inspiring, and I'm wondering how you approach that as an artist?
We're going back to our research paper now, Adrian. Oh dear. How do I approach it? You're absolutely right, because I think my cousin Krishna was saying earlier to me, your work is so beautiful, but it mustn't detract from the serious messages. So, people see that. And even Michael in the aphasia group, they pointed out, and we were struggling with the words, the paradoxes, and I said dichotomy, and they said, oh, dichotomy, that was another word, which is, the whole thing is so full of contradictions. It's beautiful, it's bright. It's useless, it's rubbish, we were throwing it away. And now it's a piece of art, it's valuable. It's an antique of the future, guys. It's not going to be around very long, because hopefully scientists will discover ways of eliminating the waste completely. But whilst they haven't done that, it is still harmful, it's toxic. So yes, I guess it's a big philosophical question.
It is, I suppose, if I could just about,
Yeah.
my feeling for what it's worth is that in some ways by elevating it to working in aesthetic, you make it more easy to grapple with these things, which otherwise you might kind of close down and shut out our lives.
Absolutely.
But that's one of the great virtues I've seen in the work myself.
Yes, thank you for saying that, because that reminds me that wherever people have responded, they've responded first to the color and the touch and the fun of having it with them. So yes, I guess if you make something really ugly and horrible, then they will, not want to go near it, but then they get near it, explore it, and then the message, the nastiness of it can be spread further and say, hey, that's dangerous stuff. But isn't that life? What looks wonderful on the outside and beautiful could be dangerous.
Excellent, thank you. Unless there's any, there's one more question. I'll take one more, right at the back.
How long did it take you?
Gosh. That one, there are two pieces outside. The one which is on the round hoop, that would have been 9 months. And the other one, I had a little help in Perivale. We had a few bits and pieces done. More intense, 6 months. So it's a huge amount of work.
Thank you for that question. Was there one more? Sorry. Oh, sorry.
In King's Cross, one of your displays, you didn't describe a flamenco dancer.
Sorry?
When I looked up,
Oh, the flamenco, you saw a flamenco dancer?
I could see the flamenco dancer.
Wow.
It wasn't in your description.
No, sorry. But this is it. I was curious that, let's hear from more others who stopped to look at it and taken photographs. So, yes, Pranab saw a flamenco dancer. What else did people see? And the one as you came up the escalator?
Or rising sun.
Rising sun?
Yeah.
Okay, we got flamenco dancer, rising sun. Any other offers? What else did you see?
Tree of life.
Tree of life. Yeah.
Amazing. I think that seems like a nice way to kind of wrap up the conversation. If you do have questions, Anita is still here. Will the bar reopen? The bar will reopen. And Anita will lead tours to the artwork if you're interested. Obviously, you have to leave your drinks behind. I just want to end by saying thank you all for listening. Thank you for Clifford Chance for hosting. And most importantly, thank you, Anita. We can all join in congratulating Anita.